What's up, nerds? So I am going through a replay of Spider-Man PS4 right now. I'm doing the remastered version for PlayStation 5. So I'm about halfway through that playthrough, trying to get all the trophies and finish the story as quick as possible, especially for this holiday weekend. So I actually can, when I'm playing that game, I was like, man, Spider-Man villains are freaking awesome. Like, I've always known that. I have a bunch of Funkos behind me. I was always kind of obsessed with Dr. Octopus and certain Spider-Man villains. So I figured that I could go through and actually give you my ranking and some reasonings for why I feel a certain way about actual Spider-Man villains. So I created my own ranking system. You might recognize some of these phrases because they're actually used in Spider-Man comics. So we have Superior, which is a little nod to the Superior Spider-Man when Dr. Octopus took over Peter Parker's body in the comic book, and he actually took on the mantle of Spider-Man as Peter Parker. We also have Amazing. I have a tab that's just kind of neutral. Maybe I don't really care about the villain, but I don't really hate him either. I have a Caught Lacking tab for those who are just kind of a little lackluster for my taste. And I also have Keep Them in the Raft. So that's for the ones who I really just can't stand them, and I really hate seeing them in a Spider-Man comic or seeing them in a Spider-Man movie or any sort of media that they can show up in. So I figure we can go ahead and get started. The first one is Adrian Toomes, which is AKA the Vulture. So we've seen a couple different iterations of Vulture. Obviously, one of the coolest ones being Michael Keaton in Spider-Man Homecoming. My favorite one is also in the Spectacular Spider-Man, which is also hilarious because in that show, he never dons the one color, which is most like frequently used for his character, which is the color green. He wears a suit that is actually red and black. I actually like the Vulture a lot. So what I'm going to do really is I'm actually going to take the Vulture and I'm going to move him up to Amazing. I like the Vulture. I think he's cool. His background in the comic is actually way cooler than the one that we kind of see. Even for the Michael Keaton one, I thought that his comic one is always cooler than the one in the movie or even the one in the show. So he was actually an engineer and an inventor. He developed the harness that would become the wings. He actually discovered that the partner he was running the business with was embezzling funds from their company. So he actually physically confronted him about this and then lost his company because, that's illegal. You can't commit assault, in which he did. But when he lost the company, he kind of retired away, went back to keep working on the wings. And then eventually, when he was able to kind of build them up, he actually used the wings or the kind of flight suit that Vulture usually has to actually go into the partner's office and steal all of the money back that actual person who was embezzling from was taking from the company. So he stole all that money back, but he kind of enjoyed being able to go steal that money. So, and then really he just decided, oh, well, why don't I just become a criminal, I guess? Which is hilarious because that's kind of like a Joker type thing where it's like, I'll just be a criminal today. It was fun the first time. So I always think that's funny that they had that as the actual Vulture. They had that as kind of his origin. Just, you know what? Being a criminal was fun today. So why don't I just do this full time? So next person on our list is actually Electro. So Electro is, I will not lie, I'm going to be right up front about it, not one of my favorites. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to go ahead and put him in neutral. I don't hate him, but he's not really that high on the villain chart for me. I know that he's powerful, and I know that, usually he's depicted pretty well, unless you're the Amazing Spider-Man 2, but they were able to give Jamie Foxx justice in No Way Home, so I'll give them that credit, and he was pretty darn good in that movie. But he's just not my cup of tea. He's still, when I saw him and I fought him in the game, all right, yep, just keep shooting lightning. That's all you got, man. Like, whatever. I'll get over it one day, but he's just not that cool to me. And as a kid, I still didn't think he was that cool. My mom and my family will tell you, I was running around the house talking about Green Goblin, Dr. Octopus, but probably never once in my life did my mother or family go, oh, wow, that kid is obsessed with Electro. No, I was not. So I'm going to put him in neutral. I don't hate him, but he doesn't appeal to me. There's nothing really about him that would put him high on my list and be like, wow, you should read that new Electro comic. That's a good one. No. I know that Electro is, my favorite origin, probably. It's the funniest origin. That's why it's one of my favorites, because he's literally just working for a power company, and then he's working on a power line trying to save someone. I'm using the origins from the 616 universe, so kind of the main universe for Marvel. But he tried to save somebody, and he was connected to a power line. A storm came along, lightning struck, and it hit him while on the power line. So it actually caused kind of like a mutagenic or a mutation to his body, and he's greedy. So really what he did is he went, oh, I have powers. I'm going to become Electro, and I'm going to make a bunch of money, be able to move out of the neighborhood or wherever I want to go do whatever I want. Which does not happen because Spider-Man kicks his butt like all the time. But I think it's a hilarious thing. Like, yep, he was a line worker, struck by lightning, and then immediately was like, you know what? I like money. I should use these powers for evil. And he's real for that. So I'll back that up. But the next one, I did talk about how much I liked this villain as a kid. So you will see that I'm actually talking about the Rhino, who's immediately going into the amazing category. I freaking love the Rhino. Every version of him. The picture I used is from the 90s show where I still love him. I think he's hilarious. And he actually is still a formidable threat to Spider-Man. So I always appreciated the Rhino. I can't remember the name of the game right now, but it was like a little handheld one that you would plug the like modules into the actual TV in the back, and then you could play with it on like the joystick. Oh my gosh, that was so fun. And I remember distinctly that one of the main villains in that was the Rhino, and I would play that game all the freaking time. I loved fighting against the Rhino in that game. It was one of the most fun things, an amazing memory for me. And honestly, I think that's what bumps him up on my list. Is I had kind of a nostalgic feeling. Like, I remember playing that game where he was the villain on the TV. It was one of those big box TVs. I'm older than you think. Probably not. But next up on my list, actually, I'll talk a little bit about Rhino. I kind of made notes of everyone's origin because, I'm a nerd, and as you can see behind me, I know a lot of characters, so I can't always remember their origins, all right? So I'm going to reread Rhino's. So he was actually, I'm stupid, I do remember this one. He was actually seduced into doing a bunch of experiments because he thought he was going to become like a super soldier pretty much, like the Captain America treatment, be able to go around and, work and do a bunch of stuff. But it was chemical and radiation treatments. And what happened was he wanted to be in a collective of spies. So he thought he was kind of doing this for a bigger purpose. Turns out they were lying. And then he became a criminal, which once again, just like Vulture, when the chips are down, I just turn into a villain, I guess. So really, there you go. Next on my list, now we can kind of talk about Sandman. Sandman, I'm not going to lie, outside of the actual like Tobey Maguire movies, he's all right. There's a comic that I really like with him in it, where Sandman is kind of dying and he has a final conversation with Spider-Man, and it's a really emotional conversation, very beautiful. But other than that, that's all I got. And if really there's one story that I'm like, yeah, guys, read this story, he's also just not that high on my list. I think it's cool how he can like make shapes and stuff. And whoever casted him in the Spider-Man 3 with Tobey Maguire, phenomenal job. Because like the picture of the comic, every comic picture that I've seen him in, or every comic that I've seen him in, I'll literally just look at him like, that dude looks exactly like Hayden from Spider-Man 3. So whoever put him in that role, amazing job. He looks legitimately just like freaking Flint Marko, just like him. So for Sandman, this is one where originally his name was actually William Baker. He was exposed to radiation while on the run from police, and his body got mutated. He was standing on sand, because that'll do it. So he was standing on sand, and it actually got the sand particles mutated with his body. And then he figured out he could actually control and manipulate the sand that was kind of flowing within his body into any shape that he desired. So he was kind of already a criminal, and then just decided like, oh, hey, now I have powers. Now I can be a better criminal. Which is pretty, I'll give him credit. That's cooler than most of these, which is just, I was having a bad day, and I just figured, to hell with it. Let's just be evil. But I love his outfit. It's probably one of the most chillest outfits. He's just a normal dude. No wonder Spider-Man freaking, like, he has to fight this guy all the time. But if he was just a guy in a crowd and I was Spider-Man, I'd be like, dude, he literally could be any of these people. He looks like a normal dude, and then 1 second later, you run on him on a beach. Oh my gosh, you're done for. He's winning. But just not my favorite. So I'm going to put him personally in the neutral category. The next one gave me my favorite scene of all time from the 90s Spider-Man. I'm sure you know which one I'm talking about. Get
back here, Shocker! Shocker! You can't escape me! I'll chase you to the ends of the earth!
And the Shocker. So the Shocker is very funny to me, because I always thought his suit is honestly one of the goofiest, but they somehow find a way to usually make it work in whatever media he's in. So whether it be the movies, which I don't think he has been in a movie. He was in Spider-Man Homecoming, but he did not wear the suit. He only wore some of the gear. But in like the Spider-Man PS4, PS5 remaster for the video game, he looks phenomenal. And a lot of the comics, he looks really good. So I actually really like his suit. I'm one of those people where I love the kind of comic accurate suits, or as close that we can get to it, without being kind of too goofy. So for the Shocker, I'm not going to lie. I'm also putting him in neutral, but just know that I like his suit. That's the thing I like most about him. His powers are all right. He's similar to Vulture in a way, where, hey, I got these gauntlets. So he was actually arrested and sent back to jail, and they put him in kind of like the shop inside of the jail. They're like, hey, make stuff in the workshop from prison. So he was able to actually build his Shockwave gauntlets, because he was like, oh, I want to open safes quickly. He found out that he was able to also like shock his enemies. So he decided to become the Shocker. But the reason his suit is the way it is because it has to be highly insulated so that he can actually use the shocking gloves, because the vibrations would mess with his body or throw him off if he wasn't wearing a highly insulated suit. So I like the description for him, but this is another one where, he's not really depicted all the time, but when he is, he looks fresh, but he's usually just kind of like, he's there to provide a slight fight challenge for Spider-Man, but not much else. He's pretty much just one of those base level, okay, we're going to fist fight now villains, which those are cool. Don't get me wrong. I love those type of villains, but they're not very high on my list. He's still like in the top 10 for my Spider-Man villains. He's just not, I wouldn't say that he's like my favorite Spider-Man character, because I would be lying. But next up, we actually do have one of my favorite Spider-Man villains. We actually have Kingpin. So Wilson Fisk, he is definitely going superior. I'll put him superior. I love to see Spider-Man fighting Kingpin. I know that a lot of people now, they want Kingpin to only fight Daredevil, or they want Kingpin to only be kind of the main accomplice against Daredevil. But you know what? No, they both take place in New York. It makes sense that they would both have to fight this man, especially in multiple storylines where he becomes the mayor. What? So you're going to tell Luke Cage to not fight him? You're going to tell Tony Stark to not fight him? You're all these New York-based heroes. You're just going to be like, give up. You can't fight Kingpin. That's Daredevil's guy. That makes no sense. So no, I don't support that stupid decision, and I love to see Spider-Man fighting Wilson Fisk, aka Kingpin, and that's why, little history with the Kingpin and I, when the Spider-Man PS4 game first came out in 2018, I was a freshman in college. I am not lying. The day that game came out, I immediately downloaded it onto my PS4, skipped all my classes. My very first semester of college, skipped all my classes that day and beat the game. It was crazy. My roommate would like go back and forth to class. He usually skipped, so don't let him give me flack for this. But it was like he would be going in like back and forth, in and out. He'd come back, be like, "You're still playing this game?" I'm like, "Dude, I'm Spider-Man. Like, what do you mean I'm still playing this game? There is crime to be fought, so I am here." Same way when I was on June 23rd, 2015, when Batman Arkham Knight came out. If there is crime to be fought, I am sat down and fighting the crime. So Kingpin is the opening boss battle for Spider-Man PS4, and I freaking loved that fight. It was so fun. He's always just this brute guy. He studied sumo. He was a crime lord. I think he committed his first heinous act, which, unalive, at like 13 years old, studied political science, which was my major. So I was like, oh, Kingpin's cool. He actually likes my degree. And then he crafted a criminal empire to be able to make money and be able to rise the ranks throughout New York. So yeah, I love Kingpin. He's kind of a down-to-earth character who's just super strong, but he also can cause problems. Like in the comics, I remember one time he got Aunt May shot. So of course Kingpin's gonna be, oh my gosh, he's pissing Spider-Man off. Spider-Man's getting all upset, and Kingpin's like, I didn't even have to do it myself. I just paid somebody to do it. And of course, that's going to make Spider-Man even more upset. But I think Kingpin is not only a physical threat to Spider-Man, but he is also able to kind of have that massive, pun intended, web of crime going on, where he can actually cause like some psychological and some emotional damage to Spider-Man as well. So villains who can cause that kind of trifecta of damage to a hero, those are the ones that you love to see. And that's the same reason that I love seeing him fight Daredevil, or I love seeing him kind of like whoever he's going up against. He's just a good character to have fight anybody. Even when he showed up in the Hawkeye show, I'm like, yeah, he's literally just running these small businesses that are fronts for his criminal empire, and these people got tied up in it. That makes sense. And I like that story. I like when that stuff happens, because and then you can weave in other characters to Kingpin's world. And you have to remember that Kingpin is in Daredevil's world, but like as of right now, Spider-Man is not in Daredevil's world, at least in like the movies or TV shows. So once they do cross paths, then we're going to be, oh, they're in each other's life. But really, the one thing that hopefully soon will be like a consistent in both their lives is Kingpin. Because I can't imagine they make a fourth Spider-Man movie without acknowledging that there is a law against superheroes and that Kingpin is leading the charge to capture them all. If they make a whole fourth movie without addressing that, I don't know what I'll do. I'll just leave it at that. I don't know what I'll do. I'll just be so confused and disappointed. But other than that, we're actually going to move on to Kraven the Hunter. So Kraven, he was actually most recently, he probably got popular a little bit more within the current media, because Spider-Man 2, the video game, he was one of the main villains. So he's actually a pretty formidable villain for Spider-Man. He's very smart. He's able to kind of fight against him. He has a vast network of resources that he can use against Spider-Man. But really, He's a dude who wants to have the best challenger in the world, and Spider-Man's one of the people that can give it to him. So he goes to fight him all the time. He buried Spider-Man alive in the comics and stole his identity. Dude is evil with a capital E. I mean, listen, I have some enemies. Do I think that any of them would try to bury me alive and then steal my identity? Nor I would do that to them. Nah, that's just some next level. You're out of your mind, insane in the membrane. You're the mayor of Crazy Town for doing that. So I think Craven is absolutely crazy, but he's also super special, and he experimented with like a voodoo potion when he was on a hunt. I believe it was in a country in Africa. He was on a hunt there, and he kind of took some voodoo potion, and he always pushes his body kind of like similar how they describe Batman. His body is beyond what is believed to be able to be accomplished by humans. So he just kind of pushes his physical strength above and beyond. He's a very smart man. And he also teams up with his, I believe, half brother, the Chameleon. The Chameleon is definitely not popping up in this video because I do not think he's that formidable of a Spider-Man villain compared to all of these. You can't argue he is formidable in some ways, but you can't argue that he's bigger than any of these people. So for Craven, I'm going to put him in amazing. I like Craven, but he's not in the top 5. I like him, but I don't like him more than the people that are already ahead of him. And I definitely don't like him more than some of the people that are coming up next. So next up is my number 2 favorite Spider-Man villain of all time, and that is Dr. Otto Octavius, also known as Dr. Octopus. And yes, you saw that correctly. I am putting him in front of the Kingpin. Why? Because it's deserved. So Dr. Octopus is freaking awesome. I especially remember when I first saw the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie with Alfred Molina. I freaking loved him in that movie, and I loved that movie. Right over here, I talk about this every time I talk about Spider-Man, but get over it because I think it's a cool story. I still have my Spider-Man 2 suit that I used to wear when I was like 5 years old, after the movie came out. So I still have that. Spider-Man means a lot to me. And because that was one of kind of the first Spider-Man movies that I saw the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man before I saw Spider-Man 2. But that's, your second Spider-Man movie. That's still a big deal. So that was a big thing for me. And I really loved Dr. Octopus. I always thought he looked cool. I thought that he was kind of a formidable threat. All those arms, too. You're going to tell me you can't think of right now, off the top of your head, 5 reasons that you would want 4 more arms, especially if they were mechanical. And dude literally doesn't even have to walk around. He just stands there and the arms just take him where he wants to go. That alone, I would do that every God-given day. I would never walk a day in my life. I would always just use those 4 arms to crawl everywhere I needed to go, dude. That'd be the coolest thing of all time. So I'm definitely putting him above the actual Kingpin. I know that in the past, one of the funniest things that Dr. Octopus ever tried to do, because I believe Aunt May found out that she was like the heiress to an island. And that island had, I believe it was like a certain, I think it was uranium. So it had uranium on the island. So Dr. Octopus decided he was going to woo Aunt May, marry her to be co-owner of the island, and then he was going to kill her. Crazy. And that was actually going to allow him to become the sole owner of the island, so he could actually have access to the uranium, which is hilarious because every time you think of a villain, honestly, thanks to 20 to 30 years of comics telling us so, you're like, oh, villains love uranium, man. They need that chemical for whatever the heck they're doing. Uranium is needed. But I love Dr. Octopus, and especially Superior being named after the time he literally took over Peter Parker's body and stole his identity and became the Spider-Man and started fighting crime in different ways. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. And I'm going to put him in Superior for that. It's literally named after him. So I'm going to put it there. Next up, this is a character where I only like certain interpretations of him because other ones make him look stupid. I'm looking at you, Amazing Spider-Man. Um, I love Andrew Garfield. Please don't come after me too hard about that comment. But he doesn't look that great in the movie. The Lizard, Kurt Connors. So we're gonna go ahead. I'm putting him in Amazing because I think he's an awesome Spider-Man villain. But you know, eh, he's not better than Craven. He's not better than Rhino. He's not better than Vulture. I would go far to say he's not better than Vulture. Lizard is one of those threats where, you know, he becomes more animalistic. He turns into the lizard. Peter has to fight him, and Peter ends up, you know, whooping on him a little bit. Maybe he gets bit once or twice. Maybe he gets scratched. So yeah, the person who has the same freaking ability as Catwoman, just scratching at the villain, yeah, he's cool and all, but if it wasn't for his look, he would be in the Caught Lacking, possibly in the Keep Him in the Raft, because really, what does he do? He's supposed to be the scientist, but I'm just not that into it because really, half the time, they just have him fighting him physically, and then Peter Parker stops him. He's not like an intellectual threat. So I'm putting him in Amazing because of his design and the way that he kind of uses his physical strength. But he could be better. And maybe, hopefully, soon they start writing him better. But that's where I'm at now. Mysterio. Now, Mysterio, this might be a hot take. I'm putting him in Amazing, but he is going in front of Craven and the Lizard. I think Mysterio is a genius. He's the visual effects or special effects kind of guy who uses that intellect that he has or that knowledge and is able to actually outsmart Spider-Man and even sometimes outsmart like the Spidey sense, and he's able to commit these crimes. There's also a comic run where Mysterio's robbing a bank, and he thought that he kind of took out the security guards or like stopped everyone, got everyone to a safe distance, and a security guard shot at him, but it was only a hologram, so it went through him and it hit an innocent bystander behind him. And that lady almost passed away due to that because you got shot. And Mysterio's like heartbroken over this. So he puts up, like, you know, he takes the bowl off his head and he takes the costume off, and he pretty much, it resembles that comic cover where Spider-Man kind of leaves, or the comic page where Spider-Man kind of leaves his outfit in the trash and is walking away like, no more Spider-Man. It resembles that a bit, the way they showcase it. But it truly is a moment where, you know, he thought he just hurt somebody, and he wasn't really in it to like hurt people, which was slightly different with Jake Gyllenhaal's version. And that's why, you know, we butt heads a little bit because Mysterio usually isn't like, you know, I want to unalive people and I want to harm and I want to do all these terrible things. Usually it's just a guy wants to make some cash and visually tricks people to do it. And I respect that. He usually doesn't want to hurt that many people. He's like, hey, I just want to be in and out and hopefully escape from Spider-Man. And I like that a lot. And I think it's smart. And I like that he has kind of his own code for that. And I really like that comic. So next up, we already know where he's going. We're talking about Venom. And I'm talking about Eddie Brock Venom. There's no Harry Osborn Venom. There's no freaking Flash Thompson as Agent Venom. It's only Eddie Brock Venom. That's my favorite one. But also, let me clarify, I only like Venom as a Spider-Man villain. You try to give me Lethal Protector, I don't want it. You try to give me him as kind of that hero, I don't want it. I like seeing him as a Spider-Man villain. I don't want him to be like, you know, honestly, that's why I'm not the biggest fan of the Tom Hardy Venom. I love Tom Hardy. I love Venom, but I am not a fan of that interpretation because they're kind of, you know, I get that he's usually an anti-hero, and yes, Venom eats people, but number one, there was no reason for those movies to be made because there was no Spider-Man. Where was he? No Spider-Man, there should be no Venom. We saw whole movies where Venom didn't have the emblem on his chest. Why? Because there was no spider emblem to be had, because there was no Spider-Man. So why is Venom here then? There is no reason. I don't want to live in a world where there's a Venom but no Spider-Man. That doesn't make sense to me. It just I don't like it. I don't want it. Give me Venom as a villain, not as a lethal protector. But it also did make me laugh that in the Spider-Man game they do mention the name Lethal Protector. In my replay, I just saw it and I was like, that's clever. That was Venom's name in the comic for a little bit. And that was like the name of his solo run. But I'm doing this ranking of him as a Spider-Man villain, and that's it. That's all. Him as a Spider-Man villain, immediately going in the superior. We know it. And don't give me that crap about Carnage. Carnage is not as good as Venom. He's still a cool character. Don't get me wrong. I like Carnage. But if you try to tell me he comes within a stone's throw of Venom, you're wrong. And you need to stop taking whatever drug you're on, because Venom is so much better. He is amazing. I freaking love Todd McFarlane for Venom. End of story. I love him as a Spider-Man villain. And also, let's just acknowledge, Spider-Man 3 Venom, not as bad as you remember. The story was accurate. He was Eddie Brock. He was, the funniest part, he was praying to God on the literally in a church praying to God on the downfall of Peter Parker, which is number one, the best thing they could have had him doing. And it's still funny to me. Every time I watch the movie and he's like, God, I need you to just take out Peter Parker, get him out of here. Hilarious. And I freaking love that they put that in the movie. But he wasn't as bulky, which is a flaw. And I did like, though, that his suit resembled that of Spider-Man, because usually that's how it is it resembles Spider-Man up to a certain point. So I actually didn't mind it. Obviously, maybe it shouldn't have been that 70s show, but at the same time, I didn't think he was that bad. I still like it. I have favorable memories of it, especially with the freaking wah 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 wah. Come on. That theme, I was so hoping that was going to come back in the Venom movie, because like how Benedict Cumberbatch is Doctor Strange in every universe, that theme should be Venom's theme in every universe. It's just perfect. But needless to say, he's going in superior. The next one is not going in superior. I will let you know that. This is Scorpion. So Scorpion, Mac Gargan. He was experimented on. J. Jonah Jameson paid for the experiments because he was a private investigator. He hired him to figure out how Peter Parker gets such good pictures of Spider-Man and how he gets so many of them, which, number one, J. Jonah, mind your damn business. You're making money off of this kid giving you pictures of a superhero that swings around town. I don't need to know where they're coming from. Bring me the pictures. I'll pay you for them. End of story. But nope. He had to find out how he gets such good pictures. Of course, Scorpion couldn't find out. So he pays for Matt Gargan to get these experiments. Matt Gargan, as of every time you try to experiment on somebody, decides to become a criminal after that. Because, I was experimented on. And he not only hates Spider-Man, but he also hates J. Jonah Jameson. So, he's a sympathetic villain for that. In the comics, I love J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson, but don't act like we all don't hate J. Jonah Jameson, all right? In the video game, when he pops up and starts talking smack, every time I'm like, bro, this guy needs to shut his trap. Like, nah, don't talk about Spider-Man like that. And in the comics especially, when Captain America told J. Jonah to shave that mustache because it reminded him of somebody else from his past, ooh, yes, I love watching J. Jonah Jameson just, get wrecked, kid. I love it. I love watching him just get shit on. I love it so much. But Scorpion overall, I'm honestly gonna put him at the end of neutral. Actually, let's move him up above Shocker, because at least Scorpion provides more of a fight. He puts more of a fight to Spider-Man. I love how the first iteration of him, he had this circular tail. I much prefer now where they make the tail have like a point, because that looks like a scorpion. But I don't know why it just looks so funny to me. It's just a dude in a green suit, and then he has a circular tail, and I'm like, what is this gonna do? You're just gonna use this as what, a battering ram? I don't know, but I think it looks hilarious. And now, last but certainly not least, the man who unalived Gwen Stacy, the man who relentlessly tortures his own son and Peter Parker, the man, not the myth, but the legend, the Green Goblin, aka Norman freaking Osborn. He is definitely going at the top of Superior for me. I mean, come on. It's the Green Goblin. He is pretty much, they haven't like officially stated it, but it's been alluded to so many times. This man is equivalent to the Joker being Batman's nemesis. If there is any Spider-Man villain that is the nemesis of him, it is Green Goblin. He has to be the main nemesis of Spider-Man. He provides the most problems, literally took out like 2 of his girlfriends. One time he even got, I don't believe it was Norman Osborn, I believe it was a different Green Goblin mantle, but legitimately got Spider-Man's girlfriend pregnant. Crazy. Who does that? That's wild. But he's just one of the best. And my favorite comic panel is one from the Superior Spider-Man where Doc Ock took over. Green Goblin realized that Spider-Man was not the main Spider-Man because he wasn't acting like himself. So Green Goblin's like, it's not you. Get out of my face. And then Peter Parker Spider-Man, having taken his body back over, makes a quip. And almost in like a movie moment, Green Goblin turns around and he's like, it is you. And you just see his face like, oh, you're back. Like, we're about to have a battle. We're about to duke it out. We're going to fight. And I love that comic panel so much. It's beautiful. And it just shows these villains, once they know their hero well enough, they're like, no, that's not him. Like, Spider-Man doesn't kill. Spider-Man doesn't work like that. Like, that can't be him. No way. They know their heroes well enough to know when someone is copycatting them. And I always respect that. And Green Goblin, on sight, he immediately knew, like, nah, that's not him. And then when Spider-Man came back, he went, there you are. Now I gotcha. You're probably sick of hearing me talk about Spider-Man villain rankings right now, so I'm going to go ahead and actually throw it over to the most recent person to play Spider-Man, which is going to be Hudson Thames from Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man on Disney+. So, who's your favorite Spider-Man villain, Hudson?
What up, Josh? Favorite Spidey villain has got to be Green Goblin. It's a classic. That's who I went to the movie theater to see and who I first remember being scared by.
Goblin being scary? What do you mean? That dude was my hero. Oh, I forgot about that. So those are my rankings for some of my favorite Spider-Man villains, as well as some of the ones who, they're good, but ultimately not my favorite. But I think they're still among some of the best Spider-Man villains. Do you agree with my ranking? Do you not agree with my ranking? Who would you put in Superior? Maybe who would you move around that I had in a spot that you disagree with? Please feel free to let me know. I'm always more than happy to listen to people who hate my freaking opinion. I honestly love it. But really, until then, enjoy the rest of the day. Have a good weekend. Have a good week whenever you're watching this. Be kind to someone and go read a Spider-Man comic.